My sister, Yun invited me from her DDing her being too plain. Then asked to borrow my BHA house for her honeymoon. I agreed, but when she arrived, she found the VE double booked with my OLEDing, who's plain no. I asked as I walked down the aisle in my designer gown. I never thought I'd get married before my sister Vanessa. Growing up, Vanessa was everything I wasn't. Confident, outgoing, the undisputed beauty of the family with her perfect blonde hair and dazzling smile. I was quiet, bookish Olivia, the sensible sister who was perpetually in Vanessa's shadow. Olivia, why can't you be more like your sister? Mom would ask, watching Vanessa charm yet another room full of people at family gatherings. She makes connections so easily. Even our career choices highlighted our differences. Vanessa became a social media influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers who hung on her every recommendation. I became an environmental scientist, spending more time with coral reefs than people. But I was content with my life. My research was fulfilling. I had close friends who appreciated me for who I was. And I'd been successful enough to purchase a beachfront property in Maui, a small, stunning house that doubled as my research base and personal sanctuary. Then I met Marcus. He was a marine biologist working on a complementary research project. We started as colleagues, became friends, and slowly, unexpectedly, fell in love. Marcus saw me, really saw me, in a way no one ever had before. "You're extraordinary, Liv," he told me one night as we sat on my deck watching the sunset. "The way your mind works, how passionate you are about saving these reefs, how you never need to be the center of attention but command it anyway with your quiet brilliance." For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was living in anyone's shadow. When Vanessa called to announce her engagement to Blake, a hedge fund manager she'd been dating for 8 months, I was genuinely happy for her. "That's wonderful news," I exclaimed, picturing her beaming on the other end of the line. "I know. The ring is enormous, 6 carats. Liv, I've posted pictures on Instagram. Did you see them? We've already got a venue, the Hartwell Estate. It's going to be the wedding of the year." I hadn't seen the pictures. I rarely checked social media, something that drove Vanessa crazy. "I'm sure it will be beautiful," I said sincerely. "Let me know how I can help." Actually, she paused dramatically. "I wanted to ask if you'd be my maid of honor." I was touched. Despite our differences, despite the competitive undercurrent that had always existed between us, mostly fueled by our mother, Vanessa still wanted me by her side on her big day. "I'd be honored," I told her, meaning it. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of wedding planning. Vanessa appointed herself bride-in-chief and approached her wedding like a military campaign. Every detail had to be perfect, every element had to be social media worthy, and every person involved had to meet her exacting standards. Including me. "Liv, you really need to do something about," Vanessa gestured vaguely at my entire body during a dress fitting. "All of this, maybe some highlights, and definitely a spray tan. You're so pale you'll wash up in the photos." I bit my tongue. "I'll think about it." "And have you started that diet I suggested? The bridesmaids' dresses are form-fitting, and honestly, you could stand to lose at least 15 pounds. This was classic Vanessa, but it still stung. I'd always been athletic rather than willowy like my sister, with curves that no diet would eliminate because they were simply my body type. Marcus noticed my quietness that evening when I returned from the fitting. "Wedding planning with Hurricane Vanessa?" he asked, pulling me into a hug. I nodded against his chest. "She thinks I need to completely transform myself before I'm presentable enough for her wedding." "That's ridiculous," Marcus said firmly. "You're beautiful exactly as you are." I smiled up at him, grateful. "Thank you for seeing me that way." "Always," he promised, and kissed me softly. 2 weeks later, Marcus proposed. It wasn't an elaborate production, just the two of us on the beach at sunset, with a simple but exquisite sapphire ring that reminded him of my eyes. "Yes," I said immediately, tears of joy streaming down my face. 1,000 times yes. We decided not to make a big announcement right away. Vanessa's wedding was in 3 months, and I didn't want to steal any of her spotlight. We'd tell my family after her honeymoon. When I arrived for the final dress fitting, Vanessa was in rare form. She paced the bridal salon like a caged tiger, barking orders at the harried seamstress and making her best friend Tiffany cry over a hemline issue. "There you are," she snapped when she saw me. "You're late." "Sorry, traffic was." "Whatever. Just try on the dress so we can see what else needs to be fixed." I grabbed the garment bag and headed to the changing room, but Vanessa stopped me. "Wait. Let me see your hands." Confused, I held them out. She seized my left hand, and her eyes widened at the sapphire ring glinting there. "I've forgotten to take it off." "What is this?" she demanded, her voice dangerously quiet. Marcus proposed, I admitted. "But we weren't going to announce anything until after your wedding. I didn't want to distract from your day." For a moment, Vanessa just stared at me. Then her face transformed with fury. "You're engaged? You? To that science nerd? Are you trying to compete with me, Olivia? Is that it?" "What? No, of course not. It just happened, and we're happy, but we specifically decided to keep it quiet because we didn't want to take anything away from your wedding." But Vanessa wasn't listening. "You've always been jealous of me, always trying to one-up me in your own pathetic way." "That's not true," I protested, genuinely shocked by her reaction. "How dare you wear that ring to my fitting? This is my time, Olivia. Mine." The salon had gone silent, everyone watching our confrontation with wide eyes. "I'm sorry, I forgot I was wearing it," I said, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, let's just focus on your fitting. This doesn't change anything about your wedding." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Oh, but it does. I can't have you there now. Not when you're clearly trying to steal my thunder with your little engagement announcement." "I haven't announced anything. No one knows except you. Right now," I insisted. "It doesn't matter. You'll be strutting around with that ring, making my wedding about you. I can't have that. You're uninvited." I felt like I'd been slapped. "You can't be serious. I'm your sister, your maid of honor." "Not anymore," Vanessa said coldly. "Tiffany will be my maid of honor now." Tiffany looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks, clearly horrified at being dragged into our argument. "Vanessa, you're being ridiculous," I said, trying to reason with her. "I'm your sister. In 20 years, you'll regret not having me at your wedding." "No, I won't," she replied, her voice ice. "Do you know what Mom said when I chose you as maid of honor?" She said, "Are you sure? Olivia is so plain. She'll make the bridal party look uneven." And she was right. The words cut deep. Plain, that familiar label that had followed me my entire life. Plain Olivia, sensible Olivia, invisible Olivia. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," Vanessa continued, her tone suggesting the exact opposite. "I'm doing this to protect my perfect day. So take your little ring and your little engagement and go back to your little life. My wedding is for beautiful people only." I stood there, the beautiful dress I'd never wear still draped over my arm, and made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for a place at a table where I wasn't wanted. "Fine," I said quietly. "I hope you have a wonderful wedding, Vanessa. I really do." And I walked out, leaving my sister, the dress, and 28 years of feeling second best behind me. When I told Marcus what happened, he was furious. "That's outrageous. How can she treat you like that?" "It's just Vanessa being Vanessa," I said tiredly. "She's always been the star of the show." "That doesn't make it right," he insisted. "And for what it's worth, her loss is my gain. Now we can start planning our own wedding without worrying about her timeline." I smiled despite myself. "You still want to marry me even though I'm too plain for a bridal party?" Marcus took my face in his hands. "Olivia Bennett, you are the most extraordinary woman I've ever known. There is nothing plain about you, and anyone who can't see that is blind." In that moment, I decided to let go of the hurt. Vanessa's opinion of me didn't matter. What mattered was this man who loved me exactly as I was and the life we were building together. The day after Vanessa's invitation, my mother called. "Olivia, what did you do?" she demanded without preamble. "Vanessa is hysterical." I sighed, having expected this. "I got engaged, Mom, that's all. Right before her wedding." "Really, Olivia? I thought you were the considerate one." "I am considerate. Marcus and I weren't planning to tell anyone until after her wedding. She saw my ring by accident, and she completely overreacted." My mother made a dismissive noise. "Well, you know how sensitive she is. Her big day means everything to her. So much that she uninvited her own sister for the crime of getting engaged." I asked incredulously. Don't be dramatic. She's just upset right now. Give her some time to cool down. She called me plain, Mom. She said I wasn't beautiful enough to be in her wedding. There was a telling pause on the other end of the line. Well, Vanessa says things she doesn't mean when she's upset. But she did mean it. And worse, my mother didn't contradict her assessment. I have to go, Mom. I have a meeting. I hung up before she could respond. True to my mother's prediction, Vanessa called me a week later, her voice suspiciously sweet. Liv, darling, I've been thinking about our little disagreement. You mean when you uninvited me from your wedding for being too plain? I clarified, not willing to let her rewrite history. She laughed as if I'd said something charming. I was stressed and said some things I didn't mean. You know how it is. Actually, I don't. Anyway, she continued, ignoring my comment, I've decided you can still come to the wedding as a guest. Not in the bridal party, of course, we've already ordered Tiffany's dress. But you can sit with Mom and Dad. I was speechless. She was offering to let me attend my own sister's wedding as if it were some kind of generous concession. Liv, aren't you going to thank me? Thank you. I repeated, incredulous. Yes, for inviting you back. Most brides wouldn't be so forgiving after such a blatant attempt to steal their thunder. I took a deep breath. Vanessa, I don't want to come to your wedding anymore. You made your feelings very clear. Don't be ridiculous, she scoffed. Of course you're coming. You're my sister. The same sister you called too plain for your bridal party? The same sister you accused of trying to compete with you by getting engaged. Oh, stop being so sensitive, she snapped, her sweet facade cracking. This is why people find you difficult, Olivia. You hold grudges. I almost laughed. I'm not holding a grudge. I'm respecting your original decision. Your wedding is for beautiful people only, remember. I'm just plain Olivia. Fine, she huffed. Be that way. But I have another question, and it has nothing to do with the wedding. What is it? I asked worrily. Blake and I are still deciding on our honeymoon location. I remembered you have that little beach house in Maui. Could we borrow it? It would save us a fortune on accommodations. The audacity was breathtaking. Uninvite me from the wedding, then ask to use my house for the honeymoon. But suddenly, an idea took shape in my mind. A perfect, poetic idea. Actually, I said slowly, that might work out. When were you thinking? We'd fly out the day after the wedding, June 15th, and stay for 2 weeks. I made a show of checking my calendar. That should be fine. The house will be all yours. Perfect, Vanessa squealed, back to her sweet self now that she was getting what she wanted. You're the best, Liv. I'll send you our flight details. After we hung up, Marcus looked at me suspiciously. What are you planning? That smile is a little scary. I grinned wider. How do you feel about a June wedding? In Maui, perhaps. His eyes widened as he caught on. You wouldn't? Oh, but I would, I replied. You said yourself that we should start planning our own wedding, but at the same time they'll be there for their honeymoon. That's poetic justice, I finished for him. Don't worry, my house has 2 completely separate units. They can have the downstairs apartment while we host our wedding on the main level and deck. They'll barely notice us. Marcus laughed. You're a little devious when pushed too far, you know that? Just giving my sister exactly what she wants, a beautiful beachfront honeymoon. And giving myself what I want, a perfect wedding surrounded by people who actually want to see me happy. The plans came together quickly. We decided on a sunset ceremony on the deck overlooking the ocean, followed by dinner catered by my favorite local restaurant. Only 30 guests, our closest friends and colleagues, my dad, who'd been appalled by Vanessa's behavior and accepted our invitation immediately, and a few family members who weren't enthralled by Vanessa's social media persona. I found a dress that was everything I wanted, elegant, flattering to my figure, with not a single concession to what anyone else thought I should wear. No spray tan, no crash diet, no highlights. Just me, at my most authentic, marrying the man who loved exactly who I was. June 15th arrived. From my bedroom window, I watched Vanessa and Blake pull up in their rental car, tired and disheveled from their long flight. My father, who had flown in separately for our wedding, met them in the driveway, his expression carefully neutral. I could hear Vanessa's confused questions as she noticed the wedding setup on the deck. What's going on? Whose wedding is this? Then her eyes found mine in the window, and understanding dawned on her face, followed by fury. I came downstairs to greet them, the picture of gracious hospitality. "Welcome to Maui," I said pleasantly. "Your apartment is all ready for you. It's the lower level, completely private with its own entrance. You'll have full access to the beach, of course." "What is this?" Vanessa demanded, gesturing wildly at the wedding arch being set up on my deck. "My wedding," I replied simply. "Tomorrow at sunset." "You planned your wedding during our honeymoon, at the same location." Her voice rose with each word. "You're trying to ruin our honeymoon like I ruined your chance to be in my wedding." "Not at all," I said calmly. "I'm having a small, intimate ceremony with people who love me exactly as I am. Plain or not, your honeymoon accommodations are exactly what was promised. A beautiful beachfront property, free of charge. Two separate events that happen to overlap." "We're leaving," she announced. "Blake, call the hotel we looked at before." Blake, looking uncomfortable, muttered something about peak season and no availability. "You planned this," Vanessa accused me, eyes narrowing. "You knew we wouldn't be able to find another place on short notice." "I planned my wedding," I corrected her. "Whether you stay or go is entirely up to you. The apartment is yours either way." Before she could respond, my wedding planner called me over to make a decision about the flower arrangements. I excused myself, leaving Vanessa seething on the driveway. They stayed, of course. Pride and practicality won out. Vanessa couldn't admit to her social media followers that she was cutting her Maui honeymoon short, and Blake wasn't keen on spending thousands on last-minute accommodations elsewhere. The next day, I was getting ready with my two closest friends when there was a knock at my bedroom door. To my surprise, it was my mother, who I hadn't invited to the wedding. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. I nodded, too surprised to speak. "Your father called me," she explained, looking around at my quiet wedding preparations. "He told me what was happening here, and what Vanessa did." "Did you fly all the way from New York just to tell me I'm ruining Vanessa's honeymoon?" I asked tiredly. Mom flinched. "No, I came because I realized I was about to miss my other daughter's wedding." She took a deep breath. "And because I owe you an apology." That was unexpected. In 30 years, I'd never heard my mother apologize for anything. "I've always favored Vanessa," she admitted quietly. I told myself it was because she needed more attention, more guidance. But the truth is, it was easier to connect with her. I understood her world of appearances and social climbing. Your world of science and substance, it intimidated me. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed silent. "When she uninvited you from her wedding, I should have stood up for you. Instead, I made excuses for her, like I always do." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Olivia. You've never been plain. You've always been extraordinary. I was just too shallow to see it." The apology was 30 years late, but it was sincere. I could see the regret in her eyes, the genuine remorse. "Thank you for coming," I said finally, "and for saying that." Would it be all right if I stay for the wedding?" she asked tentatively. "I understand if you want me to go." I thought about it for a moment. "You can stay," I decided. "But Mom, this day is about Marcus and me, about celebration and joy. No drama with Vanessa, no family tensions. Just happiness. Can you do that?" She nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. I won't say a word to Vanessa. As far as I'm concerned, these are two completely separate events." As I walked down the aisle that evening, the setting sun turning the sky into a canvas of pink and gold, I saw Marcus waiting for me with tears in his eyes. My father beside me, squeezing my arm gently, my closest friends smiling from their seats, my mother watching with a new awareness in her eyes. And at the back of the gathering, Vanessa and Blake, who had apparently decided to join as guests after all. I locked eyes with my sister as I passed. She wore an expression I couldn't quite read, a mixture of surprise, assessment, and something that might have been respect. Later, during the reception, she approached me while Marcus was chatting with some colleagues. "You look beautiful," she said, sounding genuinely surprised. "That dress it's perfect on you." Coming from Vanessa, this was high praise indeed. "Thank you," I replied, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I don't understand why you did this," she continued, gesturing around at my wedding. "Was it just to get back at me?" I shook my head. "Not everything is about you, Vanessa. I did this because I wanted to marry the man I love in the place that means the most to me, surrounded by people who support us. The timing was, let's call it convenient." She studied me for a long moment. "I underestimated you. I always have." Yes, I agreed simply. You have. Are we ever going to be okay again? As sisters? The question caught me off guard with its vulnerability. For once, Vanessa wasn't performing or manipulating. She was genuinely asking. I don't know, I answered honestly. That depends on whether you can see me, really see me, as I am, not as you've always assumed I should be. She nodded slowly. I'm beginning to. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. As Vanessa walked away to rejoin Blake, my mother approached. That looked civil, she observed cautiously. It was, I confirmed. Maybe there's hope for us yet. Mom said, watching Vanessa across the deck. She's always been a little jealous of you. I nearly choked on my champagne. Vanessa? Jealous of plain Olivia? That's absurd. Not at all, Mom insisted. You've always known exactly who you are. You've never needed anyone's approval or validation. Vanessa has spent her whole life seeking that from everyone around her, from me, from her followers, from society. That kind of confidence, the kind you have, she's never had it. As if sensing we were talking about her, Vanessa glanced our way. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my sister's gaze. A flicker of genuine admiration. Marcus found me then, slipping his arm around my waist and pulling me close. Everything okay? He murmured against my hair. I looked around at my perfect wedding, the twinkling lights, the sound of the ocean, the faces of people who truly cared about me, at my complicated family with all its flaws and possibilities, at this man who had never once asked me to be anything other than exactly who I am. Everything is perfect, I told him, and for the first time in my life, I truly meant it. Plain Olivia had finally stepped out of the shadows and into the light of her own making, and there was nothing plain about it at all.